I'm Chief Warrant Officer 4 Victor Pinion, U.S. Navy retired, telling some stories of my naval career. This one was when I was serving as the Catapult and Resting Gear Visual Landing Age Maintenance Officer aboard the aircraft carrier John F. Kennedy. Now, I had especially requested the tour of duty aboard the Kennedy to gain a tour of East Coast sea duty in the same billet that I had served in aboard a different ship on the West Coast. And this was my opportunity to learn about the East Coast Navy firsthand, because all of my sea duty up till this point had been aboard West Coast aircraft carriers. Well, I'm aboard the Kennedy, and I've already told some other stories. We deployed, we passed by Cuba and Grenada, and we'd had a very fun port visit at Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and now we're heading toward the Mediterranean Sea. Well, while we were off the coast of Grenada, I discovered that the number 3 Catapult's water brake system needed to have some maintenance done. We needed to replace the Catapult steam piston guides, which is a big job. And it would require lifting some plates out of the forward end of the Cat 3, which is right on the center lining of the landing area, which would down the landing area for a period of time. The air boss and commanding officer's ship would not allow me to down Cat 3 for that purpose. Said just before we pulled into Rio, we would be far from, at least hours from attack from an unfriendly country. So we would probably have authority to do that job then, which we did. Well, we did the job. We replaced the steam piston assemblies. We're all finished with that by the time we pulled into Rio. Well, that afforded us to have some good liberty while we were in Port Rio, which was a great time. We enjoyed that. Now, we're en route to the Mediterranean Sea and Lebanon crisis. We'd had a bunch of Marines there that had been killed by a truck bomb outside their barracks. The truck bomb was outside their barracks, and it blew up their barracks lighting. Anyway, we were headed there, and very hostile part of the world, and we were keeping airplanes in the air 24/7 just about, and we did a big rescue mission trying to rescue a bunch of prisoners that had been captured by the Muslims or whoever they were. They were hostile to us. I've told a little bit about that and where you can read about it. But we stayed high alert 24/7. And we had discovered shortly after we left Rio, I believe it was, that the number 4 Catapult launch valve stroke timers way out of limits. And I'd already addressed that situation, but we had a little hydraulic leak in the launch valve of the Cat 4, so we were replacing the hydraulic packing. And we discovered that some parts inside the launch valve hydraulic chambers had been left way too loose the last time those launch valves had been repacked. And I'm thinking, man, this is the cause of this problem. So we get to looking at it, and I discovered that start switch for the launch valve stroke timers mounted in a bracket, and that bracket had been bent. I mean, way bent. And looking, why in the heck is that? Well, the electrician didn't know why, but in the process, we also discovered that all of the launch valve stroke timer switches, which were, I believe they cost $800 a piece at that time, but they were engineered, designed to have some lock washer set up that where once you set that switch, you lock these tabs on these lock washers and it would hold the setting. The Catapult electrician had removed all of those lock washers and the things came loose frequently, and these were loose now. And I'm asking, what the heck's going on here? And he said, well, both they keep having to be adjusted and I can't adjust them in place with those lock washers on there. I said, well, they're supposed to have a jig for setting up these timers, these switches, where you set it on a jig and you make the adjustment, and then you take it off the jig and put it on its mount on the launch valves, and everything fits. He didn't know anything about such a jig. So I checked with the supply department and they had several of those in stock in the supply department. I drew a set of them and I showed the Cat electricians how to use them, and we put new lock washers on those switches, and I tried reinstalling it. First though, I had straightened that bent bracket, and when we installed those switches back on their mounts on the launch valves, I found out why that bracket had been bent. Whoever had mounted, and that included drilling holes and doweling the mounts for those switches in the frame of those lantern launch valves, had done it by eyeball measure instead of setting it up professionally with the measuring equipment and so forth that they were required to use. Well, they hadn't done that. They had just slapped them on there by eyeball measure, and then when the switch wouldn't even begin to touch the cam, they just bent the bracket enough to where it would bend. It would touch the cam. But now, instead of the switch hitting straight off that bottom of that cam, the bracket is bent, so it's hitting it like that, and it wears the seal of the switch out, destroys it, lets moisture get in there and ground out that expensive switch, which all you can do is replace it. Well, the bracket's bent, it's going to ground out again very quickly. Okay, so I checked and investigated, talked with the chiefs. Because of the situation and us being at sea, deployed, and I'd already addressed the launch valve stroke timers not fitting within the limit, and I'd gotten broadened limitations for them from the engineering center. But I'm already not the air boss's favorite person. And we didn't have the dial indicators and whatnot, and it would take time to set it up. So, with the chiefs in agreement, we agreed to use it like it is for the rest of this deployment and get it corrected back to design specs after we got back to the States. That's the end of this story. I'll carry on.